All right, today we are going to talk about motivation. I am receiving a couple of questions from people I know, and they are very poignant. And so let's start with the first one. I spent hours scrolling on my phone because I can't get myself to do anything else. When I try to study or work on something, I just end up getting distracted. Everyone on social media seems to have their life figured out, but I'm just stuck. Sometimes I can't even get out of bed because before noon because I don't see any point. And then the question comes: was there ever a time in your early life when you felt completely lost or unmotivated, and how did you push through that period? Now, I have a lot of empathy for this. This seems to be an extremely relevant topic nowadays. It's causing a lot of pain and I would say disappointment. People, I think, get a feeling this is not right. But then the reality is that it's hard for a lot of people. Like, distraction gets in the way of getting things done, and that is just that's just normal. I'm not going to delve onto the topics of addiction, dopamine addiction here, like how certain algorithms make people want to spend more time. I think even without that, it's just hard. My personal answer is to the question, did I feel like this? And the answer is yes. Like, I think most people do. And how did I push through that period? I'll be very honest. At the very beginning, I did because I had to. It was a matter of financial safety. I was afraid of poverty. There was poverty around me. My own family background was not very wealthy, and I had been educated with these ideas that bad things happen to poor people. This was probably a doubtful way to educate me, but the effect of this is that I felt I had to do things and move forward in order to secure a job and get things done to earn a living. And that was the way I really kickstarted the process. Now, later in life, where this was not the primary motivator anymore, I also discovered that there are a lot of things for which I can get myself motivated because I want to. And then the motivation is curiosity driven. And I want to say it's very powerful, but it's hard to say that to someone who feels very overwhelmed by circumstances. We'll come back to that in a bit. So I can't recommend that as a tip. However, one thing I think would work for someone who is feeling like they are stuck and scrolling on the phone and things like this, is instead to look at situations to break the routine, what I call inducing chaos, where an opportunity comes, maybe a friend invites you to do something or a family member, and then you just say yes, and then you go and do something you would not have planned to do. And the idea here is to seek opportunities to get out of the routine of the system where there is a lot of these distracting elements coming up, and then do something outside of the routine that makes life a little bit more interesting, or at least a little bit unplanned, which forces us to go and seek ways to overcome the uncertainty. The other thing that came up and the questions was the question of overwhelm. And so the phrasing is everything feels so messed up. You know, housing prices are insane. There's climate change. AI may take all our jobs. And like everyone is asked to have 5 years of experience for an entry-level position, which makes no sense. Parents could afford a house at our age, but we can't barely afford rent with roommates. And then every career path seems to require going into massive debt for education or checking our morals at the door with companies that do very unethical things. And so why even bother? Why even engage with the process, given how hopeless it is? What's even the point of trying? And that's also, I think, a very topical topic for our times. There is economic anxiety and uncertainty about the world, and we do have genuine concerns about the environment that seems so beyond what any individual can do. Now, my personal answer, as I said earlier, I got myself getting going and do things despite all these obstacles as a matter of survival, like I mentioned, financial requirement, financial safety. And I think that is in fact something that applies to most people. I think I dare say that some people, maybe not everyone, will approach this concern from a perspective of comfort, where one would be safe in the confine of a home where parents or other relatives take care of ourselves and provide support like housing, food, and so on. And when pushed out of those comforts and having to really survive, there is a lot of things that start to happen just as a matter of survival. Now, I do not wish necessarily a survival environment to anyone, but I do want to say it does have these effects. Now, the other thing that can work is to remember that all the stories we hear about all these big problems in society are the only stories we hear. And I think there is a question we should ask ourselves about balance. Even though the stories are true, they also they overwhelm our brain with negative stuff, so to speak. There is a lot of also positive things that happen in the world, and I think they deserve more attention than they get. In particular, there's a lot of progress being made in science, in medicine in particular, that allow us to cure diseases that we would not be able to cure 10, 20 years ago. There are plenty of technical problems that people have on a day-to-day basis that get solutions over time. And I think if we had more exposure to all the little bits that do better in the world, we would have a little bit more inspiration about things to try out and explore. And then the point of trying is to try things out that might have an influence, or maybe not. But like, given how many good things happen in the world, a person's action might actually be one of those things in the future as well. The particular thing that is important to realize is that all the major advances we have experienced over the course of history in terms of medicine, social sciences, politics, and so on, were not made with huge steps that were the result of one person's individual actions. They've always been the cumulative effects of many people's small individual actions. And in fact, there is no reason today to believe that at any point in the past, the action of a single individual was consequential on so many people at scale. And it's the main things that today we benefit from in terms of comfort and modern advancement to society were in fact the combined cumulative effect of many small actions. And so I think here's the main tip is to maybe step back a little bit from all the media that report on the bad things that happen in the world. They're true, I don't want to undermine that, but also maybe learn about all the other things that people have done over time and have been able to overcome. And in particular, understand the mechanics and the mathematics of compound growth, how a small beneficial action repeated many times over by sufficiently many people side by side can result in extremely large improvements. This applies to both the actions we can take on a day-to-day basis, be it study or work or relationships, and also things like economic investments, like setting aside some money for savings, given enough time and enough dedication, can result in major lifestyle changes. And so compound growth here is a key word. And I would encourage anyone who thinks what's even the point of trying to try to understand compound growth and try to decide how to act based on that understanding. Another thing I came to understand after all this myself, and that is today one of the main drivers, one of the things that always answers what is even the point of trying, is that it simply feels good to do stuff together with friends, with people I respect, with people whom I like being with, and just being together with them and then taking action together to act on our missions, on our hobbies, on maybe certain duties and cares, is going to provide me a lot of joy, and on its own is going to justify all those efforts that are brought into those situations. So compound growth is the first keyword, but then eventually motivation can be found, like the point and the not the motivation, but like the reason, the things that make the action feel good afterwards can be found in the benefits of relationships. The third point I can bring today is the following. I've always thought motivated people just wake up wanting to do things. Like they naturally want to go to the gym or study. I keep waiting to feel motivated, but it never comes. Everyone says, just do it, or stop being lazy. But they don't really get how hard it is to start when you feel this way. I thought by now I'd have figured out what I want to do with my life. Then the question is, do you feel like that? And what is your biggest misconception about motivation? That's something I strongly empathize with. I feel like this even today on certain days. The feeling is mostly present when I'm thinking about starting things that I've never done before, things that trigger my social anxieties. But like even on those things that I'm already successful at, there are days within a week where I will wake up and feel like that a little bit. So yes, everyone else seems that they're already moving forward, and I'm feeling left behind, not exactly knowing why I'm not feeling motivated yet. Now, the thing that really happens that I realize is that I'm misunderstanding the idea of motivation as a feeling, as if I should wait for the feeling of motivation until it happens. I don't have to do anything. And then when it's there, I will then take action and do things. And I think I've come back from that. Most of the time, if I think about it a little bit, then that's a way I overcome this. It's not, motivation is not a feeling. Motivation is a word we use to describe after the fact the things that we have done. In fact, I don't think that there is such a thing as motivation. Even the other things I've talked about earlier today are not actually motivation. They are different urges I'm answering and desires I'm answering, but they don't feel like a feeling of motivation. However, I can say in hindsight, well, I was motivated to do certain things, but it's not like the motivation on its own was a feeling. When I say I was motivated to do things, the doing things happened, and then I justify that I was doing this as I was motivated to do them. And I don't think that is real, that there is a motivation feeling, and therefore waiting for it to happen is not going to lead anywhere. And the thing that helps me, and the biggest misconception I've had to overcome, is letting go of this idea that I need to wait to be motivated to do something, and instead focus on building the habits for whatever other reasons. And then once the habits are there, leverage those habits to actually get things done, even on those days where I feel like I would rather be in bed and don't do anything. There is an element here which I call a leap of faith. And that is when someone tells me, you want to do something, but that requires you to go through those steps. And I say, well, those steps don't feel comfortable, and therefore I'm not going to do them. And then I'm actually shooting myself in the foot because I'm not getting to where I want to be. An example could be exercise, for example. Another example could be studying an area of expertise that I don't have a lot of knowledge or skills in just yet. I will be like, well, I'm not so sure I should study it that way because the particular structure of this study program doesn't seem like it's going to help me reach my goals. Or maybe with the exercise, it's like, well, I want to be healthy, but it's not so clear that going to that place and doing those exercises have a significant effect on my health. And so I have a lot of these analyses that tell me that there is no clear relationship between investing in the process and actually leading to the change, or maybe leading to the result I'm seeking. And so how to go about this? Well, one thing I've started to believe is that there are other people like me. I'm saying, this is strange, right? I'm saying I've started to believe there are other people like this. I can probably say a lot about the fact that I don't have a lot of reasons to believe this is true. But I'm making an assumption here, and I think I believe reasonably strongly, is that there are in fact other people like me, and that most people who do things that are leading to changes or results for them that also interests me are doing it in a way that is similar to how I would engage with this. And based on that understanding, I'm also going through these feelings and thoughts. If it worked for them, it's likely going to work for me as well. And then when I say leap of faith, it's like I'm going to try doing the thing, not because I believe it's going to work, but because I've seen enough evidence, primarily with other people, that is working, or I feel there is a likelihood that it is likely that it may work for me as well. And I'm going to try it out for some amount of time, and then I commit to that amount of time. And that commitment entails that during that period of time, which can be, for example, for a study or exercise activity, a couple of months, I will not question why I'm doing it during that period. I will continue to do this and evaluate only at the end of this commitment period whether it actually worked or not. And then that commitment, that is in fact a leap of faith, will bring me emotion sufficiently that I can move forward and get a routine built up and then start to observe the result. Some cases, in fact, the lesson is at the end of that period that it didn't work and I would rather do something else. But at that moment, then at least I would have had done something and I would have the comfort of knowing I tried something. And usually that also gives me enough experience and momentum to start doing something else, maybe more effectively. So this is, for me, is the answer to why motivation on its own doesn't really work. In fact, I don't think motivation exists. I think it's a figment of our imagination about the past. And the thing that actually works is saying, well, staying put and not doing anything is really a choice. Like, I make a choice of not doing anything versus doing something. And then why would I do something versus not doing anything? I think there is a little bit of understanding that certain results are difficult to understand through analysis, and they're only understandable in the context of other people having demonstrated multiple times over and over again that certain actions result in certain consequences, even if we don't fully understand the mechanisms of it. And through that, understanding that it's likely that going through the same motion is going to deliver the same results. And just based on that today, that is how I'm putting myself into motion. I don't call it motivation. I call it, in fact, a sort of faith. And I'm very comfortable saying this today. It's a choice I'm making. I trust the process in many cases. I trust and I verify. I trust the process before it starts, and then after a while I verify that it actually works. And if it doesn't work, then I will change the process. So that's my answer to motivation. So to recap, well, how to get started, understand that small actions, one after the other, given enough time, compound with each other and lead to results. It's nice to do things with friends, trust relationships in order to do things. Even though it feels very overwhelming in the world at large, small changes can have impact, in particular with the people around us. And then sometimes there is no feeling of motivation, and we just have to engage with the world, trust that it is going to lead somewhere, even if we don't understand exactly where it's going to lead beforehand, and then go with the flow, commit to a course of action for some time, and then see where it leads after doing the thing. And that might not be a rational choice, and that's okay. So I hope that helped, and wish you a very good day.